in its form that we have written here, we can't really graph that or sketch that easily without technology, all right? Because we can't tell, we could actually do it just by a table of values, putting in X and Y, and then graphing it that way. But an ideal situation would be to find out what the vertex is, and that makes graphing a parabola so much easier. So what we're learning this morning is how to put this into vertex form. So there's a list of steps that we do in order to do this, and then from there it'll be in vertex form. Then you need two other coordinates, and then you can solve it. Now, the first thing that we do, so you may want to write this down, probably on a separate piece of paper to keep beside you. First thing you do is you place brackets, excuse me, around the first two terms. Okay? So you place brackets around the first two terms. Second step is to factor out your A value. So what's my A value in this? 5. So I factor a 5 out, and I rewrite it as y equals 5 x squared minus 6x plus 7. So far, so good?
And you can only factor out if it works for the second term as well, right?
That's right.
Okay.
No, not true. Sorry. You factored out no matter what.
Okay.
So you could end up with a fraction,
Okay.
and you leave it as a fraction. Okay, so then the next thing we do is place blanks. Okay, so I go y equals 5 x squared minus 6x, add a blank. Okay, that goes on the inside. And on the outside, I go plus 7, subtract 5 times a blank. All right, now this is the big step. This is the major step, so we want to make sure we understand what's happening here. So I am trying to adjust this equation, 5x squared minus 30x at 7. I'm trying to adjust this equation so that I can get it into vertex form. Now, in order to do that, I can't change any of the actual equation by adding and by adding things into it, because then it changes the actual equation. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a blank here. So I add the blank into this, and I subtract the blank on the outside. So whatever I put in this blank here, I subtract on the outside. So if I got rid of my brackets, this subtract that is going to give me 0. Now the reason the 5 is here is because if I multiply this through the brackets, it'll be 5x squared minus 30x, right? Plus 5 times whatever's in that blank. So 5 times whatever in that blank, if I'm adding it into the equation, I have to subtract it on the outside of the equation. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so I'm adding it in the brackets. I always subtract it outside the brackets. All right? And that value right there has to go in front. Okay, so far? Now, what goes in the actual blank? Okay? Half of b squared. So I'm taking half of my b term and I'm squaring it. Okay? So what's my b in this case? 6. So what's half of 6? 3. So I put 3 squared here. And whatever I put in the blank here, I put it in the blank on the outside as well. Does that make sense to everybody so far that how we're making out here? We okay? So far, there's not a lot. Place your brackets, factor out your A, put your blanks in, and then what goes in the blank? Half of that middle term squared. All right? Now, what I have created is a perfect square trinomial. That means if I take the square root of this and square root of that and times it by 2, I'll end up with my middle term. That's what a perfect square trinomial is. So my fifth step then here, go to black this time. My fifth step is square root of the first middle sign square root of the third in the brackets. This is all working in the brackets. Okay? So rewriting it, I go y equals 5 times square root of my first term. What's the square root of x squared? X. My middle sign is the subtract. And the square root of 3 squared is 3. All squared. Like that. Okay, so far? Any problems? Now, let me just show you this, just so you understand, okay? That's x squared subtract 6x add 9, isn't it? Mm-hmm. X squared subtract 6x add 9. FOIL this. X times x. What do I end up with? X squared subtract 6x add 9. That's what x minus 3 squared is. Okay.
How'd you get that at the last step, sorry? The first.
This right here. Square root of that. That sign. Square root of that. And then we square all of it. Okay? All right? And then on the outside here, my sixth step is to simplify. So I'm going to do it all at once. 7 subtract 45 minus 38. 7 subtract 45. I've now just changed this into vertex form. What is my vertex? 3 and negative 38. There you go. Now I could graph it. You okay so far? Yeah?
Or do you just leave it up to the pocket?
All right, let's try a couple. Okay. All right, first step. On your first two terms. Okay. All right, next step.
Factor out your 8.
Okay.
Is it 1?
It's 1, so I don't really have to rewrite anything, right? Stays as this. Third step.
Place your blanks.
Put my blanks in, right? So always add inside the brackets and subtract outside the brackets.
And it's always a plus there.
It's is always add in the brackets.
And then
The reason is, like if you look at this here, Cameron, I have x subtract 3 times x subtract 3, right? My last number is going to be minus 3 times minus 3. It will always be positive. Okay? All right, so what goes in the blanks?
4.
4 squared. Very good. Just like that. Okay? Now I write it. What's going in those brackets?
X minus 4.
X minus 4. Good. And what's on the outside?
Minus
3.
There you go. What's your vertex?
4, negative 3.
4, negative 3. Okay? So the reason we're doing this is to allow us to graph a quadratic formula from general form or standard form, whichever you use, and make it easier by putting it into vertex form. All right? This also tells me what my axis of symmetry is, my maximum, my minimum values, my range. It all, as long as I know the vertex, I can get all that information
How do
from.
you know what it's the maximum or minimum?
What's the A value?
0.
No. If it was 0, then you wouldn't have an x squared, right? Because 0 times x squared is 0.
That was just 1.
It's 1. So is it positive or negative?
Positive.
It's positive. Therefore, it opens
Down.
up. Therefore, it's a vertex is a
Minimum.
minimum. Right. So that's all A. Okay? All right, so let's try another one. B is y equals minus 2x squared plus 12x plus 2, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. First step, brackets. Second step,
Your A, do you take out negative 2 or just 2?
always take out the, whatever it is, you gotta take it out. So in this case, it's a negative 2. So how does that change things then?
That would be negative 6.
Excellent work. Negative 6x.
Could you take out a 2x or just a 2?
No, you're just factoring out A only. Because if you factor the x out, then you're still not gonna end up with the vertex form. Okay, if I was factoring this to get my zeros, then I might factor the A out. Okay, so now watch this. Just have a look up here. Okay, I factored my A out right to that point there, right? Okay, now I'm showing you shortcuts already. What comes after factoring A out? Place your blanks. So I go like this, plus a blank, add 2, subtract negative 2 times the blank. You gotta remember, if A is there, I gotta put the A out there. Okay, so I can do that all in one step. All right, what goes in my blanks?
3.
3 squared again. Now I simplify. Negative 2, bracket. X, take away 3, all squared, right? And this is plus 2, so 2 times 9 is 18, so that would be plus 20. What's my vertex?
3 and... No. Yeah.
3 and 20.
3 and 20. Yeah.
How is it positive?
Because it's a negative times a negative, which is a positive.
Oh, I did negative 2 times.
Well, negative 2 times 9 would give you negative 18, but I'm subtracting a negative 18,
Okay.
which is the same as adding. Okay. All right, let's do one last one. It's not so friendly. Okay. Okay. All right, first step. That, right? Then what?
Take out 3.
Factor out an A. So that's going to leave me with x squared plus
2/3.
2/3 x. That's right. Plus a blank. Subtract 1 minus 3 times a blank. Like that. Okay. Anybody lost yet on the 2/3 part? You okay? Sure. Okay. How do I find half of 2/3?
You double, it's 3. Like
Yeah.
2 sixths
So, okay,
or
so-
1/3.
Yeah. 2 sixths. All right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to multiply it by a half. So when I'm working with fractions, that's the easiest way to do it. Times it by a half, you end up with 2 sixths, right? Or 1/3 in this case. So this now is 1/3 squared, which makes 1/9 out here. All right. We don't want to use calculators. We don't want to use the decimals. We want to keep them as fractions, okay? All right. So y equals my simplification. So what is it now? X plus, what's the square root of 1/3 squared? 1/3. You notice every time I do this, I write it as 1/3 squared, I write it as 3 squared. The reason I do that is because then that value goes right there. Right? Okay, so now I've got minus 1. See, that goes to a 3 like that, so it's minus 1, subtract the third, which will be minus 4/3. I don't need to show you fraction work just yet. But
Is the square inside the brackets or outside the brackets?
it's both. On the second one, on the bottom one, it's outside the brackets. Because I want that to say x plus 3 times x plus 1/3 times x plus 1/3. That's how I get to this. Okay. So the vertex in this case is what?
Negative 1/3 and negative 4/3.
Right. Okay. Bless you. All right.
I did that last part, you just -1.
Okay. So
I tried to do it.
okay. So I don't want you won't be able to because it's fraction work, right? So what I first did is I times 3 by, this was 1/9, right? So I canceled the 3 and the 9 and changed it to 1/3. Did you follow that or no?
Well, how do you,
Okay, let's do it. Let me do it the long way. So here's what I have. Like that, right? Okay. So that changes to 3/9. And if I reduce 3/9, what do I get? 1/3. Right? Because 3 goes into 9 3 times. Yeah?
yes.
So I've got minus 1, subtract 1/3. My common denominator is 3. Right?
Yep.
And minus 3 subtract 1 is -4/3. Okay? All right, I'm going to let you do one on your own. And then I need to show you the problem. Y equals negative 3x squared minus 24x. Does that subtract 19?
Yeah.
Subtract 19. Okay, do one on your own here. vertex. I always write it down when I'm done. Go to 4 and 29. How do we make out? You get it? No?
I was trying to do my math, I was just off a little bit.
Okay. Anybody else issues? No? Okay, now, the one thing that we're going to do, so again, you're gonna need the graphing calculators. And as much as Desmos makes life easier, in this class, you're not allowed to use Desmos in grade 12, so we're not gonna use it in this class either. Because you need to get proficient with the graphing calculator, you'll need it in grade 12. All right? So the reason we're doing this is we've only touched on the maximum and minimum a little bit since we started doing parabolas. We know what it is. We know if the parabola opens down, we have a maximum. But now we're going to solve all our problems in the hopes of finding your maximum and your minimum values. All right? So that's what we want to do. So we want to be able to get this vertex in all the questions. So take a look at this problem on the next page here. So these are where we're going to. Riley has 12 meters edging material to place along 3 sides of the garden to separate it from her lawn. What dimensions will give her the maximum area of the garden? So this is page 136. Okay, so they draw the garden for you. The garden looks like this. So I have an L here, a W here, and I have an L here. So we need fencing on, it says, edging to place on the 3 sides of the garden. So we need to place 12 meters of edging. So how would I find the area, the perimeter of this particular area? If this is your fence here, okay? What's the perimeter of the edging here?
Length times 2 plus width.
Okay, so add length plus W plus length, right? So my perimeter, which is 12, is equal to W plus 2L. Agree or disagree? Is that right? Okay, so if that's the case then my W, my width for this question, would be the same as saying 12 minus 2L. Yes? Okay? Just leave your pencils for 1 second. I'll leave it up here. All right. So that deals with the perimeter part of this. Now, they want me to find the maximum area though. So how do I find the area of that? What is it?
Length times width.
Length times width, right? Okay. Now, right now I have 3 variables there, don't I? I have an area variable, I have a length variable, and a width variable. But I can't graph. I can't graph when I have 3 variables. Not yet anyways. Okay? So what I'm going to do then is, where I have my W, I'm going to put 12 minus 2L in there. Like that. Okay? So I'm going to let Y equal my area, and X is going to equal my length. Okay, so far? All right. So if I were to multiply this through here, I would end up with 12L minus 2L squared. Well, what kind of shape do I have here? I have just solved area and end up with a quadratic equation, right? So now what I want you to do is I want you to punch that into your calculator. So put in your calculator y is equal to minus 2x squared minus 2x. Okay, so punch that into your calculator. You need the graphing calculator to do it. You don't have one yet? Okay, I'll get you one right after we're done here. Okay, here, I'll put it on here for now. Okay, so y equals. Oops.
Yeah, but none of us know really how to do this.
Know how to put it on.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. Twelve x. Okay, on your calculators, turn them on. You have graphing. Who does? So how many of you don't have graphing calculators? Okay, so I've got 2 graphing calculators. All right, you're gonna have to go to the library and get them. Okay. So we go into y equals. All right, and then you just punch it in exactly as it says there. So your x button is near the top there. It's that x theta. That button that gets you x. Okay, anyways, let me solve this question. Right there is my vertex. What's my vertex?
Okay, it's 6 and 0.
Something's not right here. I don't think.
Isn't that supposed to be a point?
I don't like it.
Well, they say in the question it's 3
Oh.
and 18. But you also do it flip-flop. Like, they have it labeled as
Oh,
with
this is-
length,
This is
not
a
length.
plus 12. Sorry. I know what the problem is. It's this. There you go. That's what I wanted. Okay. So what is my vertex here?
3 and
3 and what? 18. Okay. So what does that represent here? If my vertex is 3 and 18, what is that telling me?
it's a maximum of, no. That's your maximum area?
That's my maximum area, 18. All right. And in order to get my maximum area, what does my length have to be?
3.
3. So if that's 3, what's my width? 6. Okay. So those are the questions that we are going to have to get to do. Okay. All right.
You say that again, calculator thing.
Yeah. So you're in y equals. Are you in y equals? Top left corner of your calculator.